Hi, I'm Maya from Maya's Fan Series, and this is my September wrap-up. In September I read 5 books, 2 graphic novels, as well as 1 short story. From the books I showed you in my September TBR, I didn't get to finish The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson because I had to return it to the library before I really could get even started with it. And I'm also currently about halfway through The Coldest Girl in Cold Town. Now let's get on to the books I did read, and the first book I read was Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu, and this is a vampire classic that's available for free on Project Gutenberg, and I read it on my Kindle. In this one, Laura, a young girl living in a castle with his father somewhere in Eastern Europe, gains a companion from this young beautiful girl called Carmilla, who seemingly by chance ends up living with them in the castle for a while. Carmilla suffers from this mysterious illness which causes her movements to be languid and her to sleep late and wake up late in the afternoon. And I wonder what this sickness could be. Anyway, this book predates Bram Stoker's Dracula, and despite its age, it's actually a quite quick and easy read, and I was quite surprised by that. And I really love the descriptions of the nightly vampiric visitations that Laura has to deal with, and I think they were sufficiently creepy. The presence of lesbian subtext also was quite surprising when you take into account how old this book is. And Carmilla chooses mainly young female victims, and she really seems to want them to care for her, well, before she kills them. But it gave Carmilla a sense of loneliness, this want to find someone to care for her in her, well, isolation of immortality. I very much recommend this book to fans of vampire literature as well as Victorian horror, and I gave Carmilla 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Broken House by Ben Aronovich, which was the 4th book in the Peter Grant series, and I've actually done a review of this book earlier, and I'll link it down below. You can find it on my channel, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars as well. My next read was Keeping It Real by Justina Robson, which was the first book in the Quantum Gravity series, and I read it for a real life book club. Keeping It Real tells of a cyborg agent, Lila Black, who's assigned to protect Zal, who's an elven rock star, who has received some threatening letters. I wasn't very impressed with this book. I was looking for a fun, fast-paced action and an easy read, but the book never quite managed to grab me. The writing at times felt a bit clunky, and I honestly thought that Lila had better chemistry with all the other characters except for Zal. So that left their relationship feeling a little bit forced. So yeah, this one didn't pull me in, and I probably wouldn't have even finished it if I hadn't been reading it for the book club. And I gave it 2 out of 5 stars, and I won't be continuing on with the series. The 4th book I read was The Princess Bride by William Goldman, and I absolutely love the movie, and I have to say that I couldn't really separate the movie and the book in my head, so it definitely colored my opinions. This book is about Buttercup and Wesley, who fall in love when young, and Wesley leaves to seek his fortune and later to be reunited with Buttercup. But his ship is attacked by Dread Pirate Roberts, and Buttercup receives word that Wesley is dead. And she agrees to marry Prince Humperdinck, who she doesn't love, and things unfold from there. Like I said, I can't really separate the movie from the book, and these are pretty much the same story. I also love the characters, and my favorite character is Inigo Montoya, who is awesome both in the book and the movie. But I honestly can't say if I would have really liked Wesley that much if I hadn't seen the awesome portrayal by Carrie Elves. There was one significant minus to the book, which was the frame narrative. In this, the author William Goldman tells of a fictitious William Goldman who had this book read to him as a kid. But William Goldman comes off as a total a-hole. These parts were honestly so bitter and annoying. He was going on about how he almost cheated his wife with a hot actress, and how his wife is a cold fish and the son is fat, and so on and so on. It just went on. So because of that, I will take out half star from the rating, and I'll give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Without the frame narrative, it's a great swashbuckling adventure. The next book I read was Without a Summer by Mary Robinette Kowal, and it is their 3rd book in her Glamourist History series. These books take place in Regency England, but with magic, and this fancy of manners genre is one of my favorite fantasy genres. This series has a nice light-hearted tone, although at times serious stuff is happening. Since this is the third book in a series, I won't go into the details, but I thought that plot-wise this was the strongest of the series so far. The plot twists aren't hard to guess, but I still liked it, and this book has a magnificently annoying main antagonist. I seriously had to pause reading for a while and just breathe because he annoyed me so much. I gave Without a Summer 4 out of 5 stars. Like I said in the beginning, I also read a couple of graphic novels, and the first was Chronique de Jérusalem by Guy Delisle, and this is part of his autobiographical journal type graphic novel series where it chronicles his life when he goes to live abroad in different countries in different books because of his work or his wife's work. In this one he goes to live in Jerusalem because his wife works for the Doctors Without Borders organization. It combines these everyday boring routine things that he does while he's looking after his kids with these sometimes quite horrible things going on with other people who live in this country, and it doesn't dwell on them. It sort of mentions them and then moves on and leaves the reader to think about what was just said. If you're interested in these books, I recommend Pyongyang, which is my favorite and tells of his life in North Korea, where he goes to work in an animation studio. And I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. The second graphic novel I read in September and my favorite book of the month was Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. This beautiful graphic novel contains short horror stories which manage to be both gorgeously illustrated and thoroughly unsettling. The creepy atmosphere is accomplished through a great use of color and some magnificently disturbing visuals in the middle of this what could only be called a fairy tale-like mix of charm and dread. My favorite stories were His Face All Red, which I read late at night and it actually managed to send shivers down my spine. My other favorite story was A Lady's Hands Are Cold, which has perhaps the most gorgeous coloring in all the stories in the book. But I gave Through the Woods 5 out of 5 stars and I really recommend that you read it this Halloween. Finally, I also read a short story on my Kindle and that was The Curious Case Concerning the Werewolf That Wasn't, the Mummy That Was and the Cat in the Jar by Gail Carriger. And this is an Alessandro Tarabotti story. This is a very short story that takes place in Gail Carriger's Parasol Protectorate universe and features the father of the main character of that series as a young man. This is a very quick adventure taking place in Egypt, and it paints Alessandro as this sort of scoundrel I expected him to be, based on the Parasol Protectorate series. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars and would have gladly read a longer story. So that was all I read in September. It was a pretty good reading month with a lot of 4-star ratings, and I hope you had a good September, and I'll see you guys later.